The 4-day conference will be attended by domestic investors and networks of investors abroad who have partnered with our migration in more than 125 countries. The event consists of 3 days of corporate forum with leaders of Indonesian listed companies and close with the highlights of the event, namely Macro Day, that welcome all participants to attend keynote addresses and dialogues from Indonesia's policymakers and capital market regulators. The registrations for Macro Day, which will be held on March 17, 2022, is still open. The participants will also have the opportunity to win the door prize, worth a total value of 75 million rupiah. For more information, please visit www.mncinvestorforum.com. To start this morning session, please allow me to give a warm welcome to Mr. Andrianto Utomo, President Director of PT Dharma Satya Nusantara Tbk, who will present the business updates. As we all know, PT Dharma Satya Nusantara Tbk is a growing green producer of palm oil and wood products for global market. So without further ado, we will start with company presentations, followed by Q&A session. If any questions, you can just type it on the chat box to me as the moderator, and I will read it to Mr. Andrianto. When typing your question in chat box, please clearly state your name and your company. Or you can also use raise hand feature, and then I will lead the Q&A session. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Andrianto to start the company presentations. Mr. Andrianto, the screen is yours.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for this kind of opportunity to present our business case of PT Dharma Satya Nusantara. We are a palm oil company and also wood product company. So let me start with the short history about PT Dharma Satya Nusantara. We start as a company in 1983 with wood product company. So here in this slide, we have two core business. Initially as the wood product, and afterwards we grow into palm oil company, which is currently the largest of our business portfolio. Here you can see in the presentations, we start 83 as the wood processing company, and then in 1991 we have the panel processing company, and 2011 we start to our flooring company by acquiring a PT Tanjung Kreasi Parket Industry. Currently, the wood business unit consists of 19% of our revenue portfolio, and the 81% came from palm oil. We start in our palm oil business in 1997, and we grow until now. As you can see in the presentations, the 1997 we start, and then we in East Kalimantan, and 2004 we start our palm plantation in Central Kalimantan. 2009 we start also in West Kalimantan, and the last acquisition that we did was in 2018 in East Kalimantan. So if you look here, we are going across the board of Kalimantan Island, East Kalimantan, Central Kalimantan, and also West Kalimantan. As a company, we listed in Jakarta Stock Exchange in 2013, and the latest market action that we did in 2020 April, we are signing the green loan from Green Fund, which is give us a validation how sustainable company we are. And also in July 2020, we also raised our first bond issuance. So I think that is the brief history of DSN. And then if we move to the next slide, This is our 2021 performance, financial performance, consolidated. If you look here on the left side, from the top line, 19% of our revenue came from wood business, while 81% came from the plantation business. If you look into revenue, we grew by 6% compared to 2020. So from 6.7 trillion rupiah to 7.1 trillion rupiah revenue. Net profit on the next bar chart, we grow by 55% from 478 billion rupiah into 740 billion rupiah. Next bar chart is the EBITDA, growing quite substantially also from 1.6 trillion to 1.9 trillion. Then to omit the translation of Forex, we also present here in this slide is our core profit 2021 compared to 2020. We increased by almost one-fold. So from 337 billion rupiah core profit in 2020, becoming 762 billion in 2021. So this gives you the brief financial performance as a group from 2020 to 2021. If we move to the next slide, here about our palm plantations, palm oil business unit. Currently, like I mentioned earlier, we operate in West Kalimantan, Central Kalimantan, and East Kalimantan, and also North Kalimantan. The biggest chunk of our plantation portfolio is in East Kalimantan, which is we have one contiguous area. One of them is one contiguous area, about 60,000 hectares in one compact area. Just to give you the comparison, how big is 60,000 hectares? 60,000 hectares is more or less about Singapore size. We have currently 112,000 hectares area planted, which is nucleus is about 90,000 hectares. Sorry, about 85,000 hectares nucleus and plasma about 28,000 hectares. Premature is about 65% of our total portfolio, plantation portfolio. Currently, we have 12 operating CPO mills with a capacity of 675 ton capacity FFB per hour. We have one palm oil kernel crushing, the capacity of 400 ton per hour. Then we also have the one bio CNG plant with which producing about 1.2 megawatt electricity and 280 biomethane gas. Currently, we also under construction one more bio CNG plant with a double capacity. So we produce about 1.7 with the new under construction one. We produce 1.7 megawatt electricity and 570 cubic meters per hour of biomethane gas. And also as a storage tank, we have currently about the capacity about 90,000 tons storage tank in our 3 bulking locations. If I move to the next slide, this is the performance of the palm oil business unit. The production, the fruit production from 2020 to 2021, we have slightly decreased from 2 million tons of fruit to 1.9 million tons of fruit. So we are decreased by 5%. It's due because of the lagging effect of El Nino that we experienced in late 2019 and early 2020. So as I mentioned, as I may elaborate, the El Nino effect usually lasts about the lagging effect of El Nino lasts about 18 to 24 months. So 2021 is the last we experienced the last lagging effect, the 18 and 24 months lagging effect of El Nino. FFA, which is free fatty acids, which is represent the quality of the CPO, raised from 2.7 to 3.2. And by the way, this is due because of the high rainfall in late 2021, which is we experienced several flooding in our operation. So this reduced our quality a bit. If you look into bottom side of the slide, so this is the production of the CPO, palm kernel production, CPO sales, and palm kernel oil sales. Let me elaborate a bit about the CPO sales. If you look here, if I may annotate a bit here, we decreased from 640 to 545, we reduced by 15% of the CPO sales, while our fruit is only reduced by 5%. It is due because we reduce our external fruit purchase because towards the end of 2021, which is about Q4, the price of the fruit is the external fruit is going quite substantially, and that reduced our margin that came from external fruit processing. So that's why to maintain the good profit margin, we reduce the external purchase. But if you look into the financial table on the top right, we'll be able to maintain the operating margin from 18.5% in 2020 to 23.2% in 2021. And if you look into EBITDA margin, it also goes up from 28.6 into 31.7. So the strategy pays off. Okay, if I may move to the next slide, please. Okay, here is we try to benchmark ourselves against our Indonesian listed peers with the plantation in Indonesia. So if you look into this particular slide, the graph shows that on the vertical axis is the CPO yield per hectare here, while on the horizontal axis is the age of the tree. These two line top is the hypothetically is the laboratory standard of how much or the tree should produce the yield of the CPO at any particular age. So if you look into this slide, from age 5 years old into about 8 to 9 is what we call a young, mature palm tree. If you look into age 9 to age 17 to 18, this is what we call a premature tree. And if you look the going forward is what we call an old mature tree. Now, these two lines shows the graph goes up in the young mature and goes up and start to plateau in premature stage and start to decline in the older mature stage. Here is the Dsng based on the data 2020 because we are not yet be able to compile the data from our peers in 2021. The Dsng age currently is about almost 12 years old, but we are also among the highest CPO yield. And the trend still goes up just because of the function of the age. So in theory, by doing nothing and just let the tree goes older, we will benefiting with a higher yield. In theory, but we do much more than just wait and sitting idle, right? If you look into national average, this is Indonesian national average, about 14. And the yield is quite, unfortunately, is a bit low. If you look here, this is our peers. The name is quite familiar, I presume, to everybody. So the eldest in the eldest of the tree portfolio from our peers came from LSIP, London, Sumatra, and then the second eldest is Golden Agri and Salim Ifomas, SEMP. Now, here I hope that you can see DSN position with the peers. This is all Indonesian-based plantation locations, and we be able to produce this result consistently. If you look at the bottom, so this at the bottom chart, this bar chart here, if you look into ton FA per hectares, all extraction rate, which is with reduce the ton CPO per hectares, produce ton CPO per just mathematical calculations. This is from 2017 to 2020 performance. Just look, the red one represent DSN. The red color is represent DSN, while the gray color represent national average. So we consistently above national average, either from ton FFE per hectares, all extraction rate, or ton CPO per hectares result. If I may move to the next slide. Here I want to touch a bit about our wood business profile, in which consists about 19% of our portfolio, top line portfolio in 2021. We have two factories, both of them in Central Java. So a panel factory and also flooring factory located both in Central Java near Magelang City. Panel, we produce bare core. All is building materials, plywood, and blockboard. The percentage, all of them goes to Japan market. And if you look into this percentage number, it's actually our market share in Japan market, which is currently for bare core and blockboard. Our market share in Japan market is about 1/3. Then current capacity now is about 9,000 cubic meters per month. In the next year, sorry, not in next year. In this year, we plan to increase capacity to 12,000 cubic meters per month, which is the increase of this. Most of it will go into also these three products. Hopefully, so the plan is to increase our market shares in Japan. The second product that we have in the wood product business is our flooring business. The capacity is about 150,000 square meters per month, which is currently we serve for Canada, US, German, Austria, China, Japan, and Korea. The same challenge that we also face in agribusiness in palm is also about the sustainable product. In our wood product, currently we have all the certification needed to serve our market. So we have CARB for US market, FSE and PFE for Canada and European market, just certifications for Japan, and also CE for New Zealand and Australia. So we are compliant to all sustainable certifications to our respective market. If I may move to the next slide. This is the performance of our wood business, our wood product. So here you look, this is a flooring sales and this is a panel sales. You see the increase on both sales volume by 15% and almost 27%. These two represent the financial. So if you look here, the revenue goes up from just slightly below 1 trillion to become 1.3 trillion rupiah in 2021. But the most exciting one, if you look into the EBITDA margin, from just above 10%, now we become about 15%. And also if you look into the PBT margin, now we are hovering about 9.5% of the PBT margin. If I move to the next slide. Now, the sustainability. This is the very, how should I say it, the very hot topics, especially in agriculture. How DSN approach and how DSN strategize regarding the sustainability practice. The way we approach is all reflect to our bottom line. So we have three ESG, we have three pillars of the ESG, which is the socials, environment, and economics. ESG, economic. So everything boils to the bottom line productions. So if you say here, so just for example, if you talk about environment, which is we have the bio-CNG, we have the green certifications, we have carbon reductions, and this is what we are aiming to do. And this is what we are aiming to have. If I may move to the next slide. The renewables. Currently, we have a long-term contract with Japanese power plant to supply them about 140,000 tons of palm kernel shells for the next 15 years to Japan market. And that's we are not only sell the palm kernel shells, but we also do woody waste to become a wood pellet from our wood processing capacity, and also the oil palm trunk from our replanting materials. If I may move to the next slide. This is our journey. So divided into three big themes, which is decarbonizations, renewable energy, and circular economy initiative. Decarbonizations, if you see here from methane captures to bio-CNG, solar panel, baseline carbon scoping, this is quite interesting if you have time in the Q&A. So all those three, this is the aspiration. Net zero carbon. The idea is having the net zero carbon product will give the competitive edge of our product, both in the CPO and also in the wood product. If I may move to the next slide. So about the sustainability, we don't want to claim that we are sustainable, but actually we have external acknowledgement about our sustainability practice. Two examples here is from the funding side and also the worldwide rating. So like if you remember at the several first slide at the beginning of the presentations, we are the first palm oil company who being granted a green fund from Green. Who is Green? Behind Green, there's a 5 big contributors, which is all the big names in the world of sustainability. Unilever, Norwegian government, Global Environment Facility, which is from the related to United Nations, FMO, and also from Ford Foundations. So 5 big names in the world of sustainability. That is the from funding side. From the worldwide rating, if you see on the next here. So if you look here on the worldwide rating, we are currently from 2021 rating, we are the 7th worldwide rating from SPOTT. SPOTT is the independent sustainable body that rank 100 company in the world up in the agricultures. So we are number 7, which is we are the highest from Indonesia. So this is the head company that headquarters in Indonesia. We are number 7. The next from Indonesia, if you look here, is the Ostindo number 12, and you can see all the way there. Let's move to the next slide. And this is also acknowledgement from the capital market. So we are part of several index, IDX 80, IDX value 30, and then from the sustainable side is the SRI-KEHATI, 3 indexes there, and also Perfindo, and also Compass 100. Next slide. If you move to the next slide, just to touch a brief touch about the industry. So this is a palm oil. If you look here, the palm is contribute about 1/3 of the national of global production with the land use of 6%. Now, the exciting one with the development of war in Ukraine, which is Ukraine actually the biggest sunflower producers in the world. This will give also about tightness in the edible oil supply. And then if you look into the consumptions here on the left-hand side, this is the 2021 data. This is the production. If you look into blue one is the production here. It will be outstripped by the consumption. The red one is the consumption. So here, I think we already see the tightness of the supply now because of the demand outstrip the supply all the way to 2050 because there's no more arable land available in the world. I think basically the function of that. If we move to the next slide, just to give you a touch about where is Indonesia and Malaysia actually. So in the world, CPO production is about 75 million. Indonesia contribute about 60%, Malaysia about 25%, and other parts of the world is contribute about 16%. But if you look into the planting growth, Indonesia and Malaysia, here is all on the decline. Starting, I think the peak is about 2012 and goes decline until now. And this, if you look, this is the area. And this will translate into the yield. So if you look into the yield, Indonesia is already almost stagnant, the yield. Malaysia is on the downward trend. So in 2022, we see the very limited CPO growth in Indonesia. We are talking about maybe 3 to 4% of the growth. Next slide. I will show you the Indonesian portfolio. So Indonesian portfolio, we are talking about the private sectors, about 53%, smallholders 40%, and government-owned, state-owned enterprise about 7%. Total planted hectares is 15 million hectares. Matured area already 92%. And if you look into consumption, CPO production of Indonesia, about 2/3 goes to export, 1/3 for domestic, which is goes to food, half of it, and biofuel, half of it. So that is about the portfolio of Indonesian CPO productions. If we move to the next slide, actually this is the challenge of the palm oil industry. Weather, first of all, we cannot control the weather. And the fertilizer price, which is highly correlated to the global oil price. That's also our biggest challenge. And also the high CPO price, current high CPO price, and also I believe going forward is going to be on the high side compared to willingness of the replanting. Because if you do replanting, that means that you will sacrifice the cash flow, the future cash flow, at least for the next 6 years to 7 years after you start replanting. And also the sustainability challenges. Next slide, I will touch a bit about going forward, how the Dsng will move forward from here. So the strategy in palm oil, we have on our portfolio, which is quite attractive young age of the palm tree. So we, like I mentioned before, also the ES sustainability practice with third-party independent verifications and also acknowledgement. And also we technology adoption in our operation to enhance our productivity and cost efficiency. So that is, I think, the basic. I think that is the big strategy in palm. And then next one is in wood. What we're gonna do next in our strategy. So our product is fully certified product. For the past 5 years, we modernized our manufacturing process to achieve cost leadership and also empowerment and inclusions of the local community, just to maintain a stable supply chain, which bring at the end a very stable operation in wood. And our strategy in renewable is, like I explained briefly in the previous slides before, is we're gonna tap into renewable energy as a future business. So the keyword here in renewable energy is in situ energy. What I mean by in situ, we try to produce as much as possible energy that we consume by ourselves. So we try to detach ourselves from whatever energy price in the world, so we can maintain our cost leadership in our productions, with the big aim to be part of Indonesian national contributions, international contribution, which is to reduce 29% of GHG emission in 2030. So I believe that will be all of our strategy, the big strategy. Then if I move to the next slide, which is combine everything, the keyword is the verified ESG. So we are not saying that we are ESG ready, but we are also being verified by independent third party, global independent third party. So I think that brings to the end of the presentations. Hopefully it will give you a brief sense of what is DSN and how we're going to going forward. And thank you for this opportunity, and I'll give back the floors to the moderators. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Andrianto Utama, for the comprehensive presentation. We will now begin the Q&A sessions. Participants can address the questions to our keynote speaker by writing it down in Zoom Q&A features or chat box to me as the moderator. When typing your questions in chat box, please clearly state your name and your company. Or you can also use raise hand feature, and then I will lead the Q&A session. Mr. Andrianto, before I open the floor to the participants, let me ask you several questions. First of all, congrats, Pak, for the good set of numbers. Could you please
Thank
touch
you.
up on the month-on-month trend, and is it possible to disclose your guidance and the target number so we can see a better outlook in 2022 onwards, maybe from the top line or bottom line target? Any updates over there will be grateful.
Okay, so I try to try to answer the questions from slightly different point of view. So I'll give you a bit why, if I mentioned briefly that the reason why in 2021 we still have a slight decline in our production, which is came from the lagging effect of the El Nino. That we see in 2022 is already gone. So having said that, I believe that we are talking about the numbers is coming back to pre-El Nino performance. So if you're talking about 2022 compared to 2021 in the FFV production, we are talking about 20% increase there. The CPO maybe about, the CPO result maybe will increase about 25% of the productions, because solely because of the no more lagging effect of El Nino. As the and if I try to correlate the numbers of the ton, CPO ton, into the top line, the way I think is how we see the CPO price going forward, which is personally from the SN point, internal point of view, the way we see it is going to be a quite strong support of the higher price, because of there's basically there is not matching between supply and demand. I think that is more or less. I try to answer you because this is what we are seeing.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thanks for the additional detail. Okay, there were a couple of questions that already coming from the chat box. Mr. Andrianto, your first questions comes from Mr. Gilang. The question, in the midst of Russia and Ukraine geopolitics, how does this impact the SNG sales, and what are the SNG strategies in dealing with this problem? This one also regarding the rising fertilizer prices, as we know that with the coal price increase may also impact to the fertilizer price. How the SN respond to this and strategize in order to maintain the margin? Go ahead, Pak.
Okay, the Russian geopolitics that I mentioned briefly in the supply and demand of edible oil. So the way I see it is gonna be more tightness in the edible oil supply, because Ukraine would give the world quite substantial oil, which is at the end of the day, as a CPO producers in Indonesia, we see it as additional supporting for the price of the CPO price, because at the end of the day, it's about edible oil in the global supply and demand. If a big chunk of the supply goes out because of this geopolitics, that means there's more tightness in the supply of the edible oil. How it will represent in the numbers, we have to see in the next couple weeks, I believe, how the price will reflect. Rising fertilizer price, yes, we see it. And then I think that's also for the SNG, the strategy is not, we already secured in last year, 2021, I think it's about in Q4, we already secured our supply for 2022 full year, and some portion of 2023 also. So this with the fixed price of the fertilizer. So hopefully that will minimize the fluctuate of the SNG cost structure. It's already being secured with the fixed price. And if you coming back a bit about the Russian geopolitics with Ukraine, in our wood product, we don't sell our product into that particular market. So if I say, if you remember in the short presentations, most of our product goes to, for the panel goes to Japan, while for the flooring goes to US and Canada. I think that's a big chunk of our product market. Hopefully that answers.
Yeah, okay, noted, sir. That's very clear. Thank you. We move to another questions coming from Austin Barayev. The questions, DMO rose from 20 to 30%. How much does it affect the top line? And what steps will the SNG take? So any insight over there would be helpful, Pak.
It's quite challenging questions because the policy keep changing every other time. So the last development was, I believe, yesterday. So DMO rose from 20 to 30% for exporters, but there is no more DPO, domestic price obligations. So the market price is coming back. So there is no more. We can, at least with the current policy, we can at least coming back to the market mechanism for the price. So about DMO, DSN is basically sell 100% domestics. Actually, with this, DSN coming back to the normal price, to the market price, the real mechanism of the market price. I think that's all I can answer with this current development of the policy.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Andrianto. Since the time is almost up, last but not least, Mr. Andrianto Utama, can you give us a closing remarks to conclude today's session?
So the closing remark is this: yes, we are in the you can see us as a plantations company, which is we produce CTO, but we have all the ingredients to move forward as one of the leading company in the sectors, having a very young, I'm not going to say young, but very optimal age profile in our tree assets, which is produce very good yield, and with the uptrend yield, if you remember the couple slides before, uptrend yield for the next at least 5 to 8 years. But not only say that, but we also do our ESG part, and the way we approach our ESG part is becoming our differentiating factors compared to the other peers. And we believe that the sustainability and ESG is not only about the jargon, but we really believe in it because we see and we experience a very high direct impact to our bottom line because it reduces the cost, and also we have some kind of premium also from our product. So last but not least is also saying that we are about the ESG, and it's also about the company, about the GCG and everything. We are not saying that we are good with it, but we also been verified with the third-party international body. So I can say that I think we are the most verified ESG ready company in the palm plantations. I think that's all. Thank you so much for the time and the opportunity.
Very well. Thank you, Pak. We would like to thank Mr. Andrianto Utama, President Director of PT Dharma Satya Nusantara Tbk, for bringing today's meeting. For your information, the upcoming group meeting at 11 a.m. today will be PT Bumi Serpong Damai Tbk. We also organize a full-day virtual conference that welcome all participants to attend presentation from Indonesia's policymakers and financial services regulators who will share their views on the latest post-pandemic recovery update. For your information, we still open the registration for Macro Day, the closing event that will be held on March 17, 2022. And for more information and online registration, you can visit the website www.mncinvestorforum.com. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's meeting, and thank you to all participants for attending the group meeting today. See you in the next session. Have a good day.